Hey, you. Welcome to Home to Me, a podcast where self doubt meets its match, mildly sarcastic self awareness. Spoiler alert for episode 3, humor joins the chat. Do you know what I love to do? I love to laugh. I love it. I love how it feels. I love how it sounds. I love how it looks. I love it on myself. I love it on other people. Have you heard a baby laugh? Holy shit. Like what a cute thing. Do you know? And you don't have to believe me, okay? Doctors and OBs and baby nurses, whatever. But when my child was 3 days old, he was lying next to me on the doctor cot on our couch and he was dreaming. He was sleeping and he was dreaming and he giggled, okay? And my mom was there because for a second I was like, am I so delirious from childbirth and the freaking trauma of that I just imagined this? And like, no, I didn't, okay? Because she heard it. My child at 3 days old giggled. Imagine being a 3-day-old kid having such a fun dream that it makes you laugh. Okay? And like, whatever. Disagree with me if you want. I said what I said. It happened. Okay? Anyway, since our podcast is supposed to be also mildly informative, like therapy without the copay, I'm going to share some research with you today from Dr. Barbara Fredrickson. And just PS, how wonderful is it that there's somebody out there and a bunch of people with jobs that do things like research, laughing, and connection. What a freaking amazing way to spend your life. I just love that. Anyway, I work primarily in relationships. And so I wanted to share some of the work that Dr. Barbara Fredrickson does on this thing called positivity resonance. And it's this brief shared moment between people where there's humor and warmth and affection and connection just for a second, so much that you almost have a sense of oneness. Have you ever had that where you're with your friend or your partner / whatever your relationship looks like, or your parent or your kid, and you're just barely laughing about the same thing, and you're just like both on the same page? It almost feels like spiritual. It feels like elevated a little bit, where you're just having this like very special moment, this connection, and you're together. And it doesn't have to include laughing, okay? Mine usually does, where it happens when I'm like deeply barely laughing with someone, but yours could just be a more quiet, calm moment of oneness and connection. That is what positivity resonance is. And that is something so important in our connections. It's something that happens when we are truly, truly connected to somebody. And it's so special. And if you haven't felt it, 10 out of 10 recommend trying to create these moments where you're with somebody and you're both so safe and it's funny and it's warm and it's connected and it's affectionate, because it is so magical. Another part of what Dr. Fredrickson talks about is how things like anxiety, fear, frustration, anger can interrupt our ability for connection. And we spoke about this in last week's episode as well. When we are feeling that anxiety, fear, frustration, anger, it makes our minds constrict to just that perceived threat, or real, maybe the threat is real, but to just that threat. Whether that threat is real or imagined, or real or perceived, our body doesn't know the difference, so reacts the same way. So when that happens, not only are you not able to have those special connected times, but you're also limited in that you can't come up with new ideas. You don't have access to your usual resources, like your critically thinking, problem solving, brain skills, and you can't connect. So last week we spoke about discomfort and how we interpret discomfort as a signal that we are not safe. And sometimes correct, right? Sometimes we feel unsafe because we aren't safe, which is good. That means our nervous system is working properly. But when we're interpreting discomfort automatically as a sense of not being safe, our brains start being able to stay in a place for connection, and it moves us to protection in whatever way we protect ourselves. So whether that be fight, flight, freeze, fawn / people please, that's where our brain's gonna go. And never has this been more clear to me than in my recent years living here in America. I feel like there is just, that's not a feeling, I think that there is just so much defensiveness everywhere. People seem to permanently live in a state of fight, flight, freeze, fawn, of nervous system activation. Everybody seems to have their defenses up, waiting for someone to fuck them over, or to minimize them, or to insult them. Now, hear me out. I'm not saying this doesn't happen. I'm not saying there aren't people minimizing you. I'm just saying in general, everybody seems to be in a state of nervous system activation, waiting for one of those things to happen. Even more recently, as I've been working with people and even seeing online the examples like of conversations and dating apps where people are meeting for the first time, sometimes I read them and I'm like, these people were ready to fight from entering this conversation. Like some people aren't even entering some dating conversations from a place of calm and excitement and joy. They're entering like ready to fight. Or they're scared that that's going to happen, so they're ready to run. Or they're ready to just like lay down and be like, I surrender. I'll be whatever you want. I'll do whatever you want. Like, don't hurt me, please. Like, I'm on your side. I agree with you. Even it's like a protection response, not a real opinion that you have. And I find myself wondering, are they just so many more dangerous people in the world now that we need to be this hypervigilant all the time? Or are we all just terrified, and so everybody looks like the enemy to us? Everybody, without us even knowing. And on top of that, it doesn't help when I see so much hatred and negativity and separation and meanness being kind of spewed from every social media and news place. Every media consuming device that I have access to has this stuff coming. So this is not a political commentary piece. It's just like a human to human connection piece, this podcast. When did we lose the ability to stay connected to ourselves and to our humanity, despite what loud, angry things we're hearing, maybe politically driven things we are hearing out there? When did we lose ourselves so much that we are now able to defend dehumanization of people in the name of staying safe? When did that happen? Who is scaring you so badly that you are unable to feel anything but fear, hopelessness, and hate? Because something's wrong there. It's so difficult right now not to feel hopeless while this country and other parts of the world are devastating each other. It's so hard. The other day I was listening to a podcast and I'm so annoyed at myself because I didn't write it down. I'm going to find it and I'll put it in the show notes. But Trevor Noah was on the podcast and he was talking about how we have lost / moved away from the concept of community, living in community. And now we pay for everything. Like we buy the community back. We pay for the things now that used to be accessible to us when we were more in a community. So for example, childcare, somebody to help you clean and cook. Those are things we now pay for, but it's things that we used to just have access to by living in a community and relying on each other. And that made me think a little bit about self-trust and about trust in general, in ourselves and in our fellow humans. I wondered why we move so easily now to isolating ourselves. And I also see that in my work. The amount of people considering cutting off their parents or family members, ending friendships, ending relationships, because we interpret what I think is the normal discomfort that comes from relationships as now a lack of safety, because there's this extra layer of fear and danger woven into our everyday lives. Does that make sense, what I'm saying? So are there times when relationships are actually harmful and we would be safer not having contact with that person or those people? Yes, 100%, of course, absolutely. In my own life, there are people that I am no longer connected to because those relationships were just not good. They just didn't feel good. They didn't feel right. I don't miss them. I don't regret that decision. This is nuanced conversation. Of course, there are times where cutting somebody off or moving away from somebody is a wise and safe choice. But what I'm seeing now, more and more recently, is that we're ending these relationships and we're disconnecting from people, not because they're genuinely inherently unsafe, but because we're defensively isolating ourselves, because we have that discomfort in there that we are interpreting as a perceived threat and not anymore as a regular part of being in relationship and in community with people. Our defensiveness disrupts connection. So let's do a quick exercise together, because I think it could be helpful to explain what I'm trying to say, and you could see if in your life this is applicable. Do you ever feel like someone is saying something about you that feels like an attack? Okay, if you do, write it down. Or you don't have to write it down. If you're driving, whatever, don't do that. That's dangerous. I'm going to give you a real quick example of one of mine. It's when my husband says to me, "Why did you move the keys?" instead of, "Did you move the keys?" Okay? That thing, even when I'm saying it, getting a little angry. He assumes I did it before asking me. So I'm recognizing when my husband says to me, "Why did you," whatever, in this example, "move the keys?" I get immediately defensive. So I ask myself, what did I hear him say? Because he said to me, "Why did you move the keys?" But I'm not reacting as if the question was that mild. Like, that question means nothing, right? It's just a question. Why did you move the keys? But how I'm interpreting that question, what I'm hearing is, "Why did you do this, you fucking idiot? You moved the keys. Why are you so stupid? This is your fault." Those are the things that I'm hearing. That's what I'm reacting defensively to. Not the mild question, but how I'm hearing it, how I'm interpreting it. I'm the only other adult that lives in our home that would use one of our two cars. So I obviously, if he can't find the keys, like, it makes sense that he would naturally be like, "Oh, I put them somewhere." He's asking the question, sure, in a very irritating way that he should not do anymore after 14 years. But being irritated at him for how he's asking me a very normal question is different from feeling attacked by him. Okay, I'm not being attacked. It's my job to tell myself that so that I can learn how to respond appropriately to maintain my connection. It's all of our jobs as individual people to understand ourselves and our reactions and our emotions so that we can be responsible for our connections. This is not applicable to relationships that are abusive. This does not replace actual relationship therapy. I'm just giving you some information that I want you to keep in your brain and mull it over and see if it is applicable to you. So in those moments when I get so angry, I can actually feel it as I'm talking about this right here in my throat. I say to myself, "Baby Steph," that's what I call my inside body wounded part of myself when I'm getting defensive, and I know that that's from an old wound and not from what's happening in the moment. I tell myself, "Baby Steph, you're safe, okay? No one thinks you're stupid. And even if they did, we know that's not true. It's just your very safe Labrador husband who doesn't know how to ask a question properly, okay? We're just irritated. We're not unsafe. You can chill. You are safe." Add a little bit of humor in there, sprinkle a little bit of sarcasm. I'll make a little joke with myself. Maybe I'll make a little joke with my husband, and then we'll carry on with our lives. So practice that in your own life. Think a little bit about examples. I'm going to give you a proper one. These days, Gen Zs and millennials, it seems, are very pro mental health. Maybe not everybody, but I see a lot. And they are going to therapy or they're engaging in mental health content because they're recognizing that the way that they're responding to certain situations now is not actually helping them or serving them. So they're kind of looking at it. And inevitably, once you start doing a kind of self-work, depending on who you go to and what kind of theoretical background you have, usually you go back into the past and you see, what was this person's upbringing like that could have contributed now to the way that they respond to certain situations, okay? Hence, now me as a relationship therapist, I get family therapy questions about parents who are like, yeah, my child has gone fucking crazy. They want family therapy because sweet little Emily all of a sudden has a backbone. She no longer wants to plan family vacations by herself. She can no longer take the dog to the vet in the middle of the day when she lives 45 minutes away from her parents. And she no longer wants to be triangulated between her dad and her brother because they don't want to talk to each other. So they both talk through her. And now she's saying, I don't want to do that anymore. Okay. All of a sudden, little Emily is changing and the family is not comfortable. Just side note, in therapy, this is going to happen. When one person in a system changes, the system has to change. Okay. So this comes up a lot. And now we're in family therapy and Emily is talking to her mom and she says, Mom, when I was a kid, I felt confused when I was yelled at and there wasn't any explanation for it. I would have loved it if you had sometimes apologized to me, especially when I didn't do anything to make you angry. It would have felt nice to have somebody explain that to me. Now, when my boss yells at me, I get so flooded and so overwhelmed. All of a sudden, I'm that young child that I just freeze and I don't know what to say. Can we please talk about that? That's what Emily says in therapy. Beautiful, Emily. Well done. Mom responds, I guess I was just a shit mother. Sorry for working 2 jobs and trying to get you kids to listen to me when you were just running around being selfish. I don't understand why you want to blame me for everything that's wrong in your life. Mom feels very attacked in that moment, obviously. We can see and hear mom is defensive from the jump. Okay, no surprises over there. Do you have moments like this where you hear something from your kids or from somebody, they're like, hey, this is how I feel. And instead of you hearing, this is how I feel, you hear, you did this, bitch. This is your fault. Okay, that would be an example of when you feel attacked, but you're not actually being attacked. That's what I want to talk about. Like, how can we learn how to take a little pause, tell the difference, because we could accidentally fuck up. Like now, Emily's going to be kind of mad maybe, or sad, or maybe Emily's used to getting yelled at and she freezes when she gets yelled at. So maybe now Emily's sitting in therapy and she's going to freeze. She's not going to talk about it and we're not connecting anymore. Okay, this is a problem. So when we ask Mom, what did you hear? She says, I heard, it's pretty obvious, I think, what she heard. She heard, I'm a shit mom. Everything that's wrong is my fault. I didn't do enough. That's what Mom's hearing. So kid didn't say anything about blame, right? She didn't call her mom a shit mom. She didn't tell her mom that she's to blame for everything, not at all. But Mom hears it that way. And because of that accidental interpretation that this is an attack when it's not, we now have a loss of connection. And that's what I mean when I say it's our responsibility to understand what makes us feel activated and to check all the time, is this an accurate response to what's happening? Because sometimes it is. And if it is perfect, we leave it. I am not advocating at all that we need to eat people's shit and we need to keep our mouths shut to keep the peace. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying learn when you feel attacked, but you are not attacked. Okay, so let's think for a second how Mom could respond in the future. Mom can say, I feel attacked right now. Just give me a minute to calm down. And then we can talk about it. Mom needs a second. If she needs a beat, if her feelings are loud and there's a buzzing in her ears and she's getting all activated, she can say, give me a sec. I just need a sec. Okay, a very beautiful response. Or if Mom is a little bit practiced at regulating her body, she can say, I hear you. I didn't apologize. I was not apologized to. And at that time, I didn't think that it was necessary, or I didn't realize that it would have such a big impact on you. I hear now that it does. And I hear now that it even impacts your job. And I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry that that is what you're experiencing. Or I'm sorry that you didn't have those things in childhood that you needed to hear from me. I wanted to always show up as an amazing mom. And I now know this piece of information. And I will now implement it so that our relationship can be safer. You know, like, you don't have to say it that clinically, but Mom can respond in that kind of way. Not agreeing, not saying you're right, I was a shitbag, like, how did you even survive me? Wow, I'm terrible. But just saying, I hear you. I hear you and I respect what you're saying. And I can see your point of view. Maybe mom doesn't agree. Who fucking cares? We're not here in the business of winning and losing, agreeing, disagreeing. We're here in the business of connecting, right? Like that's the priority. Is if we're talking and we're connecting and we're making each other feel safe, we're winning. Perfect. Good. Connection is good. Amazing. So sometimes it can feel like we're losing something when we do this. Sometimes when we put down the fight for who's right, who's wrong, when we stop defending ourselves, we can feel like we lose. Absolutely, we can. And if that's you, we're going to keep talking about self-trust and how to build that up. Because the more self-trust you have, the less likely you are to feel like you're losing when you prioritize connecting with someone over being right. Believe me, I used to be a person who could not be wrong. Being wrong felt like threat number one to me, for sure, 100%. Just intolerable. And so I remember that, and I can feel how I feel now, where now being wrong is not even something I keep in my brain. Okay, it's not important. I want to connect with my people that I love. Another thing I hear all the time now is how hopeless people feel. And I have this story that I wondered about sharing it, because I don't want somebody to hear it and make it ugly. Okay, well, I don't have control over that, actually. So whatever, do with it what you want. But I hope it will bring you hope. It brings me hope. And it's about this person that I met a long time ago in my work. And this person was probably the most triggering human being I have ever come across in my whole life. And is also the person that keeps giving me hope. Like the memories of this person keeps giving me hope when I feel hopeless. So it's both. I used to run a group for parents of transgender, or parents and family members, I guess, of transgender kids who the parents were having a hard time coming to terms with their kid being transgender, and they couldn't find a place to go where they felt like they could be authentic. So they would usually try their church first, because a lot of these people were religious. They would go to their church first, but the churches would most of the time not be a safe space for the kids. Or they would go to a safe space for LGBTQ plus people, which is amazing. But the parents would have a hard time being authentic there, because they had the awareness that what they were thinking and feeling, like that would not be safe to say in a safe space for LGBTQ plus people. So the group was kind of a middle point for parents to be able to come in and show up authentically, get access to real professional help, and still feel some form of acceptance. Okay, we had that group, and in one of these groups, this person showed up, and this person was just defensive from the beginning, ready to rumble. Okay, had some research that was not based on anything real. It was just at the time had these random articles floating around that were not true at all. They were not based on real people, and yet they were floated as if they were real. And I guess if you have access to one certain type of media, you're going to be exposed to one certain kind of narrative. And so that person came in strong with this very, very negative, demeaning narrative. So our group was 8 weeks long. Never have I been so triggered in my entire life by the things that somebody was saying. But my job in that room was not to react to my triggers, obviously. It was to be helpful. It was to make a safe space to actually bring something to the table to help these people maintain their relationships with their kids. So this person would come in, he would say a whole bunch of shit, and I would often be like, okay, I would be like, give me a sec, because I'm feeling like a whole bunch of things. There's some strong words you're coming in here with, or when we're going to talk about this for sure, but we're not going to use that language. Like that would be a lot of what was happening. And this person kept showing up. They would get irritated. We would face it. We would sit in it together. We would talk about it, but they would still keep coming. And that was just so beautiful. They knew after I shared with them how important it is for vulnerable kids, LGBTQ plus kids specifically, how much research there is that shows us how important it is for that kid to have a safe, supportive person, especially a parent, and what a big difference it makes to their mental health if they have accepting parents. And so this person sat there, he heard it. It was wonderful, and still felt angry and hopeless and scared. But the more we met each other in that very authentic place, and it was like uncomfortable. I get hives on my neck and my chest And even on my face, sometimes when I'm very stressed out or I'm very passionate about something, I get hives. I would leave those group sessions, headache and hives. Like literally, it would be a lot. But we kept going. We kept showing up. We kept talking, conversing, disagreeing, like absolutely. And I kept pulling this person back in to say, what's underneath all of this anger and defensiveness? Like, can we just find it? What's underneath it? And eventually, even he was able to identify that what was underneath it was fear. He was terrified. He's reading this crazy stuff in these articles and hearing these commentaries from the people in his community, and he is terrified. He is convinced that his kid is genuinely fucked. Like, someone has brainwashed his kid and his kid is fucked. That's how he felt. Okay, disagree completely on what's happening. Absolutely, I 100% disagree with that. And we could connect on that piece, on that fear. I understand why he would be scared if that's what he thinks. And once there was a space for him to be there, to be in the fear, in the hopelessness, he softened. I don't know how else to say it. He softened. He opened up. He literally opened that hard, grating shell of his that was built around him because he was so scared. He needed it. He felt so attacked. So his defenses were very thick and strong. So much so that he lost access to his ability to see how much his own behavior was hurting his kid. He couldn't see it. He was just too in it. But sitting there and continuously connecting, even though we were disagreeing, showing up authentically, being able to still joke while we're having these very serious conversations, this man let his defensive shell crumble. And at the end, in the very last session, he came into session and he said, well, I reached out to my kid and we met and I asked them, what would make you happy? And my kid said, if you use my right pronouns and my right name. And this parent said, okay. And that, I left that session, I cried, I'm sure, for a whole day afterwards. It was the most incredibly powerful thing I've ever heard. Ooh, I'm going to cry again. It was the most powerful thing I've ever heard, just to see the freedom that this man felt to connect with his child because someone had given him the space to be angry, to bring in all of that ugliness and to not see it as his ugliness, but see it as the ugliness from the outside, like from the media, from the messaging, from the politically driven things that were happening. That was where all of that ugliness came from, not from him. He was not an ugly person. Inside there was a man desperate to connect with his kid, desperate to protect his kid. Just a wonderful, wonderful dad in there. But it didn't seem like that from the outside because of this defensiveness, because of this feeling of necessary protection that's not necessary at all. It's just influence from these outside ugly things. And once he let himself be there it was, this beautiful moment. And at the end of these groups, I would send out like a, what would you call it? Like a review kind of paper thing where they could fill out if they wanted, like how they felt in the group, what we could do different, what we could do better, what they liked, whatever. And there was a space to put a comment. And they were anonymous, but he put his name. That's how I knew it came from him. And he put his name there and he said something like, I know I was a lot for Steph, or something like Steph had a really hard time with me, or something like that. Like he said something acknowledging that it had not been a peaceful, comfortable experience for me or for him. And he said, and I found the group so helpful. And I was like, isn't that the most real thing on the planet? Neither of us is pretending that we have anything in common at all, anything at all politically, anything at all, even religion, anything, right? Anything. But we connected. We had this very powerful, impactful moment that this was years ago and it still sticks with me. I still think about it. It's still one of the most special things that I've ever been a part of. And that's why I wanted to do this podcast today, because I've been feeling genuinely hopeless these last few days, especially after this weekend. This is going to come out on Thursday, but it's Monday today. I'm feeling especially hopeless today and yesterday. And I thought, no. What is the thing that you hold on to when you feel hopeless? This thing, this story, this experience with this person probably is on the way opposite side to me of any person that could be. And still, my ability to connect with him and his ability to allow me to do that kind of connection with him made this huge impact. And I hope wherever he is that he feels the same way. But regardless, it was so impactful to me. And that's what I wanted to share with you today in case you're feeling hopeless. I know I always leave you with something at the end of the podcast. And today I don't want this to go on so very long. But in case you feel like everything is a dumpster fire. I hope you can hear the story and feel just a little tiny bit of hope. Okay, so pulling it back to self-trust, of course. I think one of the reasons I was able to show up like that in those groups is because I trusted myself that I was good and that I was safe, no matter who I'm around, that I'm safe. I know myself. I know my own heart. I know I'm a valuable person. And I also have that same trust in everybody else. I know everybody else deep down on the inside is good. I know they have good hearts. I know that there's just so much shit around that is making us reactive and making us angry and mean to each other. And that's not to say I'm excusing that kind of behavior. Not at all. If you had been present in that group, you would have been like biting your nails and been like, oh shit, like this is getting real. We were going at it, like not in a disrespectful way, but there was no like peaceful, like chitty chatty things about these big topics. Okay, I'm not saying eat people's shit or put up with this bullshit that you disagree with. Not at all. We need loud voices. We need advocates. But I just want us to be mindful of how our fear is impacting our relationships. I guess that's what I want to leave you with. How your fear is manifesting in things like anger and defensiveness and people pleasing, how that's impacting your authentic self, like your ability to find that self-trust, but also your ability to connect with your people, with our people, because that's the most important part. And I don't know if this is the South African in me, but I genuinely think that every person on the planet is exactly the same in terms of worth and value. Not one person is worth less than another person. Genuinely believe that. And that belief, I think, makes me a person that is okay even when things are really not okay. I will not let this outside loud hatred distort my view of my fellow people. Not at all. That does not make me an ignorant idiot. I'm not going to go be friends with people who are genuinely harming other people. Not at all. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying I can recognize who the true enemy is, if we want to say enemy. That sounds too strong of a word. I can recognize where the ugliness is coming from. And it's not inherently from every person around you. It's not. If you look and you listen, and if you disagree with me, please do it. I want to hear it, because we can have open conversations here at home to me, because that is why I think this podcast can be different to other podcasts, because I don't want to tell you a fact as if it's true and you have to believe me. I want to tell you one thing. I want to be one voice, and then I want you to use your voice. And together we all use our voices, and we're all connecting, and we're all communicating. And maybe that's a crazy pipe dream, but I don't think so. But tell me what you think. Okay. It was really nice to talk to you guys again today. This episode is probably a little bit longer than the other ones. I don't know, I haven't edited it yet, but I appreciate you giving me your ear and your time. Please engage in the comments, in the DMs, and wherever you want to engage. We're going to keep talking about self-trust, and I think we're also going to keep talking about how to build community and connection, how to learn to sit in discomfort so that we can stay connected to our people. Have a lovely Thursday, and I will see you guys next week on the next episode of Home to Me. Welcome home.